I've held off on covering the Dream SMP shenanigans for quite a bit now, been concentrating on making my own content, but yesterday's election was so crazy it needs a video. So here we go. I'm only going to be mainly covering the events of the election results, so I will explain any backstory needed if necessary. Real quick, please subscribe, it's free and you can always unsubscribe later. So, as you probably know, the election results came out yesterday with POG 2020, Swag 2020, Schlatt 2020 and Coconut 2020 all running for the presidency of Manberg. After the rallying day on the 21st of September, hundreds of thousands voted for who they want to see take the presidency of Manberg, and those results were announced yesterday. First on the list of parties was POG 2020. Composed of Tommy and Wilbur, this party was the reigning power of Manberg and wanted to call the elections as a show of power, and had initially planned for the election to be a one-party race. Next, Swag 2020. Quackity formed this party in retaliation to POG 2020 and was the first major competitor for POG 2020. His running mate was George Not Found, and Swag was the second and last party to actually get on the electoral ballot before it closed. Third, we have Coconut 2020. This was a party formed by Neachu and Fundy, who wanted to run Manberg and whose main selling point was that they had a bakery. This party was also formed after the ballot closed, but was allowed to run due to popular appeal. And finally, we have Schlatt 2020. This party was formed after the ballot closed again and was a complete blindside. Wilbur and Tommy had initially brought Schlatt onto the server to use him as an endorsement during the pre-voting rally, as they had done with Vicstar, but Schlatt went rogue at this point and announced his own candidacy. Then, Schlatt and Quackity, after an extremely eventful rally and multiple deals between many people, agreed to, no matter what, pool their votes and run as one party. And that leads us back to results day. After a full day of voting, every participating member of the server logged on, and as a side note, HWOM also joined at this time, but that's besides the point. Before the announcement, Tubbo showed Tommy and Wilbur a secret bunker he had built in Manberg, in case things went south, and stocked them both up with invisibility and strength potions. Anyway, every single participant in the election logged on and either took their place on the podium or in the audience. Wilbur then got on the mic and started to announce the votes. He then announced that some of the votes for Coconut 2020 and other parties had been botted and had been disqualified after being identified. Fundy then basically confirmed that he was the one who had botted the votes, which did raise quite a lot of hostility among the parties. Wilbur then started to announce the votes. With 9% of the votes, in 4th place was Coconut 2020. Then, in 3rd, with 16%, was Schlatt 2020. And finally, in 2nd place, with a whopping 30% of the vote, was Swag 2020. The winning party with a whopping 45% of the popular vote was POG. However, there's a catch. Quackity and Schlatt had made a deal on the night of the election that no matter what, they would pool their votes. The math savvy among you may have just figured out what just happened. With a combined percentage of just 46%, with just 1% more votes than POG 2020, Schlatt 2020 won the election of Manberg. Then, as JSchlatt's first decree as president, nay, emperor, he revoked Tommy and Wilbur's citizenships to Manberg. This made them fugitives. They weren't welcome in the Dream SMP and they're not welcome in Manberg anymore. Tommy and Wilbur, now fugitives, ran from a massive mob and took refuge in Tubbo's bunker, where they were safe. They then started running as Schlatt forced Tommy's best friend, his only solid ally, Tubbo, to hunt him down and bring them to justice, with Tommy and Wilbur now forming an anti-governmental revolution. Eret, Tubbo and Nicky, all of them offered the revolution help as Tommy and Wilbur retreated to the wilderness, far from the eyes of the government and their hunters. They set up the most rudimentary of home bases and tuned in to JSchlatt's second presidential address. During this speech, Schlatt agreed that all citizens of Manberg would then be forced to tear down Manberg's sacred walls, which were the only symbol of Manberg's previous independence. Wilbur and Tommy watched on helpless as those they had nurtured, those they had trusted, tore down the walls that they had fought so hard to build. Tommy and Wilbur then got the supplies that they needed, ransacking the houses they once lived in, and then, as they were in the process of gearing up, Quackity saw Tommy. They both then ran back hastily to home base, quickly surveying the damage done to Manberg's walls on the way, as they surveyed what JSchlatt had done to their beloved country. As Tommy and Wilbur regrouped, they called in perhaps their most powerful asset, Technoblade. Although Wilbur initially wasn't open to the idea of inviting Technoblade to their side because he was American, Tommy managed to convince Wilbur to let Techno join. Tommy then headed to spawn to escort Techno back to the home base, right into the thick of enemy territory. Techno and Tommy then retreated back to the home base, killing Ponk on the way, who had previously offered to help them, and tuned in to Schlatt's third presidential address. Schlatt then changed the name of Manberg to Manberg, saying that the nation would no longer take any L's. Wilbur, Tommy, and Techno then started mining for resources, and offered a deal to Tubbo on the way, a deal that would make Tubbo a spy on the inside of JSchlatt's government. As this was all happening though, things were also happening on the Manberg side of things. So let's rewind a bit. As Tommy and Wilbur ran from the mob, Tubbo was in a dilemma. Niachu was also in a similar situation, but had much less of an attachment to Manberg, and she became a very outspoken critic of Schlatt's regime. However, Tubbo's best friend was now fugitive, but he could not very well leave Manberg. Schlatt was forcing him to follow his every order, praise his every move, and he couldn't do anything. He was forced to tear down the walls of Manberg while Tommy and Tubbo watched in the distance. Tubbo then managed to convince Schlatt not to tear down the Kamarvan, but in doing so lost most of his favour with him. Tubbo was then forced to do worse and worse things to Manberg, even breaking Wilbur's birthday signs, and it was at this point that Technoblade logged in. Schlatt then said that Techno was a sleeper agent, which did very little to calm down the extremely jumpy citizens of Manberg, and then to try and keep control, Schlatt made his speech, which changed Manberg's name back to Manberg. Nikki vehemently protested against this change, which led to Quackity visiting Nikki. She then suggested that she and Quackity start a revolution against Schlatt, but this situation quickly broke down and then led to Quackity being killed by Nikki by accident. She was then put in jail by Schlatt and even refused being given her own bakery and freedom in exchange for betrayal of Tommy and Wilbur. Quackity then freed Nikki out of pity, and she went on run from the Schlatt 2020 government. Now, however, let's get back to the revolution. Techno then realized that the revolution was lacking one critical resource: food. The only logical solution then was a potato farm. Techno and Tommy then got to work on that and started to plan with Wilbur. The three of them sat around Tommy's jukebox and listened to Blocks, the very same music disc that Tommy had listened to with JSchlatt on his first night on the server, before going to Manberg and trying to negotiate a one-day ceasefire. Techno, Wilbur, and Tommy then met with Tubbo, JSchlatt, and Quackity to enter into negotiations for a one-day visa to Manberg. Tommy wanted that one-day pass to show around Ninja, who would be logging onto the server and streaming with him. Schlatt then agreed to give them the visa, just so that Ninja would be able to see his land, and the revolution was then escorted off of Manberg by Tubbo. Schlatt had also been telling all citizens of Manberg that Technoblade was a paid spy, to try and keep them from panicking, and Tubbo then told Tommy of this development, which really brought down the trust between Wilbur, Tommy, and Technoblade. The revolution then rebranded into Pogtopia, which was a mix of Pog 2020 and Xtopia, which was what Tommy had initially wanted to call Manberg. Then, possibly one of the most important developments of the plot happened. Tommy stumbled across a strip mine in the ravine of Pogtopia, which led all the way back to a bunker near Manberg. This secret tunnel will probably be extremely important to Pogtopia for gathering resources as well as for launching attacks. And as Tommy and Wilbur explored this tunnel, Techno defended and hid the home base from outside forces who were trying to get in. Eret and Bad Boy Halo, who were both looking for Pogtopia, saying that they wanted to help. Wilbur, however, refused to let them in, as he was unable to trust even Nikki, let alone Eret, who had already betrayed him once. It was at this point that the streams all ended, or at least the plot points of them all ended, leaving us with this situation. Schlatt is currently the dictator of Manberg, with Quackity as his right-hand man and Tubbo as the third in charge. Tubbo is also a double agent for Tommy and Wilbur, and Quackity and Schlatt have a bit of distrust for each other and for Tubbo. Nikki is an outspoken citizen of Manberg who is heavily disfavored by the government and on the run, and Eret and Bad Boy Halo are looking for Pogtopia to try and help them. Pogtopia, which is Wilbur, Techno, and Tommy, is holed up in the wilderness with Tommy and Wilbur as equals, and Techno being distrusted by both of them. Pogtopia also has a secret tunnel into Manberg and also knows of a secret bunker under Manberg that Schlatt does not know of. And that's it. That's the results day of the election all completely covered, and please remember these are all jokes, guys. All of these people are friends and this is all an act, so don't send hate to any of them. With that said, a lot more people watch my Dream SMP videos than my other videos, so please just consider giving some of the others a watch. I put a lot of effort into all of them, like this MCC 10 prediction video, and if you could just take a look at them, that would mean a lot to me. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!